Welcome back to pregame.tv. Brady Kannon and Bryan Leonard here with you on a Tuesday. The B team, the S team, of course, here earlier today. Steve Fezzik and Scott Spreitzer. Now it's our turn, and we're going to take a look at one college football game that Bryan will have a take on, and myself, I'll be turning to the NFL as we head into Week 2, fresh off of Week 1, just off of the Monday night affair, the doubleheader. The Lions and the Cardinals get it done in the win column. The Lions cover. The Chargers cover the spread against the Lions. But first of all, we're going to go back to the college game and start on Saturday here, where the Tennessee Volunteers, coming off of a victory over Arkansas State, they did not get the cover there, but they do pull out their second victory in a row, and now they've got a tough one. They'll travel to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the Oklahoma Sooners, and this will be a real test for this SEC club in the Volunteers, who has looked pretty good so far. Yeah,
Tennessee's got some talent on their team, but they're very young. In fact, this will be their first road game under the new Tennessee team this year, and interesting enough, it'll be the first road game ever in college for 2/3 of the players on this team.
Wow. Wow. And Oklahoma's been very impressive. It's been a couple of cupcakes. What was the first game I remember? That was not a cupcake game, if I recall, but they did win handily. And, of course, they blew out Tulsa last week. Do you remember the first game of the season Oklahoma played? I thought it was a decent opponent, and I can't think of it right now.
I bet them in the first game, but I don't remember it right now.
But they rolled through that one, and they rolled through Tulsa, and now they're laying 20.5 to the Volunteers.
Yeah, and Oklahoma's probably the most impressive team that I have seen. They are right now in mid-season form if you watch them play. They don't make the mistakes that most teams do early in the season. They've got a ton of speed on that team. They're very deep. Bob Stoops has talked about this possibly being the most talented team he has had there. And this game has extra significance because they are playing an SEC team, and it's rare that an SEC team will play a big program on the road like that. And Stoops has actually come out and said, he says, we are playing quality teams here. We're playing Tennessee's. We're not needing to make some reference to some of the other teams in the SEC, the Alabamas and such, that have scheduled a bunch of cupcakes to start the season.
Right.
Now, until you mentioned Tulsa, I mean, Tulsa's been good in the past. They're not quite as good now, but it's a rivalry game. It's a team in the same state that has something to play for when they play Oklahoma. So this is a game, I think, that is circled for Oklahoma because it is an SEC team. And as I mentioned, a very young team out of Tennessee, 2/3 of the team making their first road trip ever.
Well, and I think it goes into strength of schedule, too, just because they have that SEC label. You know, no matter if it's Tennessee or South Carolina or Missouri, whoever it is, they're an SEC club, and I think that looks good in the eyes of the committee at the end of the year. On the other hand, Tennessee, it was Utah State that they played in the first game. A lot of the sharps were all over Utah State, and Tennessee pulled that one out in very impressive fashion. And then Arkansas State, that they handled pretty well last week. I guess you could say they did not exceed expectations. They did not cover the spread. But I think this is obviously a huge step up in class for them, and this is going to be really tough. And I don't know. I know you're leaning towards Oklahoma here, but 20.5, I mean, it doesn't even seem like enough. Tennessee has played nobody that you would really call exceptionally strong. They haven't played a big-time program yet, and now they're going into Oklahoma, where a lot of people have them picked for the Final Four in the playoff, and 20.5 might seem a little short.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Utah State game. It was not on the regular schedule. It was a game on the following day, which threw me off because it was a nationally televised game. Yeah, in Utah State, last week they played a Division II school, an FCS school.
Right.
They gave a lot of points in that game, and they struggled for a long time. You know, they were right there. So I'm not impressed with what Utah State has done since they've played Tennessee. So what we originally thought was a real impressive victory for Tennessee, now I have to look at it and say, you know what, the team they played, Utah State, just does not look good so far. So I'm not quite buying into the Tennessee improvement. Yes, they are better than they have been, but they still have a long way to go.
Yeah, I thought they looked impressive in that first game, but you make a good point there. Maybe Utah State's not as good as we thought they were.
And you've got to do that now that we're into the third week of the season. Sure. At our Tuesday meeting today, Ted Zabransky pointed it out. He says A plus B equals C, and a lot of times you could take a look at that and you say, well, now that a certain thing has happened, you say maybe that team's not as good, or this team is better than what we thought they were, and you just add it all together a little bit and you can come to a conclusion.
Because in the preseason, you know, it's true with the NFL too, until you see a couple weeks go by, you really don't know for sure what this new version, what the 2014 version is going to look like.
Yeah, after last week, you know, nobody likes the Bears. You know, just a few weeks ago, everybody thought the Bears were a bet over team, you know, season wins. All of a sudden they lose at home to Buffalo, and now nobody wants to touch the Bears. Tends to be a little bit of an overreaction.
You ready to make this one official?
Let's do it. Extra motivation here for Bob Stutz in Oklahoma. Everybody's always talking about the SEC being so much better than everybody else. This is his chance to prove it, that the Big 12 is just as good as the SEC. As I pointed out, Oklahoma's got a ton of skill position talent. Could be the best team the Stoops has had since he's been there. Tennessee, as I pointed out, 2/3 of this team is making their first road trip ever, and they're making it into a fired-up team that is one of the most talented teams in the country. We find out here what Tennessee is, and I think Oklahoma, if they get a chance to run up the score, they will. And we're going to take a look at Oklahoma here, only West Virginia on deck, a team that also looked improved against an SEC team earlier in the year when they played Alabama. But, well, that's on the horizon for Oklahoma. This is the game they want here. We're going to lay the points. I personally have not bet this yet. It's been 20.5 across the board. I'm looking for the 20. Got plenty of time. There's going to be enough people out there that are going to want to say, hey, Tennessee, they looked really good on national TV. I'm going to play them, and then we finally get that 20. Maybe we'll even get a 19.5. No need to hurry here, but we're going to be on the favorite, play Oklahoma.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think you could make a case in your handicap last week that Tennessee was looking ahead to Oklahoma and make a play on Arkansas State, and that one cashed some tickets. But, you know, as much focus as Tennessee may have here this week, I think Stoops and what you're talking about and, you know, taking it out on an SEC squad outweighs whatever it is that Tennessee's looking ahead to.
Yeah, he's come out on Twitter and talked about the SEC thing all along. A lot of teams have that jealousy about the SEC, and they want to get that out of the way early in the season. That way they talk about the SEC being so good. He can come at the end of the season and say, hey, we beat an SEC team, you know?
Sure. No, and I agree with you, you know, that Oklahoma has looked very impressive. I mean, just no hiccups at all in their first 2 games this year. They look ready to roll.
Yeah, they're smooth. They're running on all cylinders right now.
Well, it's Bryan Leonard, and he's taking the Oklahoma Sooners minus the 20.5, probably waiting for a 20, maybe even less than that, to get it done over Tennessee. We'll be back with some NFL talk. Keep it right here. It's pregame.tv.